everyone. For my Module 3 mini lecture, I decided to put together a PowerPoint showing you the difference between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. This module you will be organizing your research and you will put together an outline. What I think is important, however, is to start thinking about what pieces of material you're going to want to quote and what pieces of material you can get away with paraphrasing and summarizing in your paper, because your outline will need to include some of the materials and sources that you plan on using to expand on your ideas. The first thing we're going to talk about is quoting. When you quote, you are going to take a passage word for word from another person. You can include the entire passage or even just partial parts of the author's words, but even if you change a few words, you still must put the author's exact words in quotes. You have to make sure that they get credit for using the quote. Quotations usually occur with researchers in the humanities, so if you're doing a science paper, you could probably get away with paraphrasing a lot more. You really should try to use quotes sparingly when you write research papers. And as I mentioned in Module 2, when you're quoting, you not only need to include the speaker and the date of publication, but you also need to include the page number so we know where you're exactly getting the quote so that we can go back and look it up. Because you want to use it sparingly, there are three things you could ask yourself to see if it's quote worthy. Is it extraordinary? Is it something that's written so beautifully, so colorfully, or so succinctly that you know that your paper will benefit from having the wording included as it is? So if you don't think that you can provide the quote justice or give it justice, then you can take it directly. If you plan on talking about the quote specifically and really delving into it, you would want to have it there directly also, because you want to break apart the different ideas, and it's important, if you're going to agree or disagree, that you have exactly what the writer said. And if there's a new definition, idea, or concept, you also want to give that justice and provide the quote. It's really important in They Say, I Say, which you read last module. In chapters 2 through 5, they go through the different ideas between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. One of the things that's great is the quote sandwich. You don't want to leave a quote hanging. Something that we notice in papers a lot is that people try to just throw in quotes to show that they read something or to show that someone else backed them up. But you want to use the quote sandwich, and you want to think of the top bread as being a statement introducing the quote, the meat being the quote itself, and the bottom bread being the explanation following the quote. You want to explain why that quote matches up with what you're doing, and that's from They Say, I Say. Paraphrasing is easier said than done. Paraphrasing is when you put another person's ideas into your own words. You don't necessarily want to just simply change a few words, though. You need to really read what the writer is saying and put that in your own words. My suggestion is to read something and to put it aside and then to rewrite it without having the original in front of you to see what you got out of it. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to just be looking and trying to come up with a different version of the writer's words, but you really want to understand what the writer has written and really try to put it into your own words without changing the meaning. That's important. When to paraphrase? It's when you need to provide information from another source, including the details. It's really important that you do paraphrase throughout the paper. The information that you're going to be sharing in your research paper is, for the most part, not your information. So it is okay to have different paraphrases and citations in every single paragraph almost, because a lot of the information is not going to be yours, but you do want to elaborate, and I would like to see the majority of the work in your paper being a paraphrased. And last is the summary. Summaries are not so much going to be used, but you're going to really, there's just a broader paraphrase. It's when you present someone's ideas in your own words, but in a nutshell. You're not going to just try to change some of the words around or, really try to change the meaning, but you're just giving an overall view of the source. You'll want to summarize the author's main ideas when you're providing the background necessary to prevent the details that become the evidence that supports your thesis. You're going to see a lot more summaries towards the beginning of your paper than towards the end, or really so much more in a conclusion. It's not going to be so much in the basis of your paper. These are the references I used. This quote-worthy is a great source that goes back to what I was saying before and to how to ask yourself whether something is quote-worthy or whether it could be paraphrased. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I expect to see a mixture in your paper, but for the majority of your quotes, they should be paraphrased. Good luck.